Grand Rising, everyone. We trust you're doing well. So, first of all, it's very important to note that fasting and prayers don't benefit the youth or the congregants. The only person who benefits most, especially, is the pastor and his family. Let's take an example from the life of Jesus Christ. According to the Bible stories or how we're taught at church, before Jesus started his ministry, he was in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, wherever he went to, my first assumption is that probably there were no human contact. Even if there were, it was very minimal, or those people will know the man is there for a special mission, so wouldn't put any pressure or stress on him. Third, Jesus was not working. Maybe just sitting, meditating, anything he could do to put himself in spirits and soul. And so it would have been very easy for Jesus to go through 40 days not eating. And therefore, if the devil come to tempt him after that on 3 consecutive times, he would be able to overcome. Now, let's come to the life of an average Christian person here in Africa. There's no way you can survive in this land without doing any job. On top of it, our roads are not even good. Sometimes you sit in some cars and it's like you are sitting on top of a motor engine. It shakes you till you get to work. If you're not even fortunate, you could spend like 2 hours in traffic because the roads are not good. Potholes all over the places and cars are always stuck here and there. To add to that, most workplaces don't even have stress managers or counselors or psychologists, so that when you have problems at work, you could take it to them. And so already you are stressed before you get to work. At work, you have to spend all your day working under very harsh conditions. Sometimes logistics for you to even work with other offices don't exist, and you have to improvise for yourself. Imagine a teacher teaching on the human body, and there are no textbooks or a projector or something to make it easy for the children to understand these body parts, and the teacher would have to resort to drawing. You draw, you clean, you draw, you clean, because you have to make way for other lessons. Most classes, when you go, you don't have even pictographs or anything helping the students to learn. Imagine students learning computer without a single computer in the school. It sometimes amazes me how some people are able to go through some lessons, but the average African is really trying in these harsh conditions. Okay, so you are stressed at work. After work, probably you have to go through the same 2 hours of harsh traffic conditions to get home. One thing I know in Africa is that from the beginning of the year, especially January, most churches organize 21 day or 30 day or maybe the whole month fasting and prayers in an effort to energize the youth and like usher them into the new year or something. So you go through all the stress of the day. On top of it, pastor says come to church for prayers because it's a fasting program. And I know for most churches, if you don't put yourself through these fasting and prayers, you are probably shamed or disgraced or something. It's like you are not serious. That's why you don't come for evening services. The truth of the matter is that these programs only benefit the pastor, because I know for some churches, what they do is that during this fasting and prayers program, they set a target that by the end of this 1 month, we should have made 10,000 or 20, depending on the number of people in the church or the kind of work they know the church members are engaged in. And if for every week they are checking and they are not making this money, then they are putting more strain on the church members to bring more money. So they get their money. Meanwhile, all these days that you're going to church, already stressed through the day. And on top of it, it's like, don't eat anything, because when you eat, you break your fast. Come to church, after all the stress, come and pray. And then at best, if you are lucky, some churches will provide some tea or some fruits to you. Now, look at that as compared to an average European who in the first place has very good train systems or road networks, so they can calculate that within 1 hour I can get to work where conditions are good. Some are fortunate enough to have gyms, restrooms and other operations in their work environment. I studied in Norway for a very short time, and within my university, there was a gym, there were restrooms, there were showers all over the places, and people could walk in anytime. And even with that, the fees was not so much, So the European system and the American system has enough facilities or amenities to be able to take care of the average person as compared to our systems here. Yet these people don't stress, unless for those who have been washed. They don't stress to go to church after all this stress. But we have been brainwashed to think that it's because we are not praying enough. That's why life can't improve in Africa. The truth is that it's rather the opposite. We are spending so much time in prayer that we don't have enough time to be able to sit and think about ourselves and what new things we can give to the environment or the system. So back to the analogy, you spend the whole day working through all these stress conditions. You come to church, averagely probably church is closing at 8. One thing I've realized is that when you haven't eaten the whole day and you still use so much strength either in talking or doing other things, by evening you have broken down. So upon all the stress, you still go to church to scream on top of your voice, casting out the devil you haven't seen before, blaming some witches in your village for the conditions of low standard of living you are going through. And then you get home maybe at 8, even at 9, because from work probably you still have to go through some transport to get home. By the time you get home and you take your bath, you are even so stressed. If you are not even fortunate, you have to still try and take in some heavy meal because the whole day you are tired. Now, one thing I know is that when you continuously eat very late at night, it also has some negative implications on your health. There are a lot of people who develop ulcer and other health conditions through these fasting and programs, but the pastor will not tell you, because he knows if he tells you and you are gaining wisdom from the things he's telling you, you will not come to church. If you don't come to church, then that means the church is not making money out of you. There were times in my church where I had to have confrontations with other people because I didn't understand why people have to work throughout the whole day, get stressed, and still have to come to church for evening service. It's a different thing if you have luxury of car. And I always tell people, don't think or don't assume that a few people have been able to make it through church and their prayers, and so it will work for you. One thing you should understand is that we all have different life destinies and karma. For some people, for all you know, even though they are coming to church all right, there are other things they are doing that you don't know or you are not aware of. There are people who come to church just for socialization, not because they believe in the Christian message and they feel the Christian message is working for them. But aside all the socializing they do at church, they are using their brains to the maximum to do other things. For some also, probably per their destiny, whether they work or not, they are praying, whatever, life will still be good for them. And so they get to enjoy in that regard. And then you want to compare yourself. I always say my message is not for everybody. But for me, with all the effort I put in church, my prayers, tithes, and everything, it still did not work out for me. Until I came to my senses, I started researching, I started learning, and I realized I was wasting time in the church. So you, the youth who think you are doing yourself and Ghana a service, upon all your prayers, you haven't been able to find solutions to the filth in Ghana. Corruption keeps increasing. We still have to rely on the government as compared to European countries where the youth are always working with their brains and thinking of how they can solve problems for themselves. When you go to China, I haven't been there before anyway, but per a few documentaries I watch online, it's just so beautiful to see every one of the youth thinking, doing something profitable. But as you're wasting time in church, casting the devil, blaming the devil, you are wasting your brain because you can't see the devil to be able to cast him out all that you are doing is a figure of your imagination, and because the pastor has told you that it's some witch in your village somewhere who is the cause of your problem. So I really admire this and want to use this opportunity to commend the youth who have come out of church and they are using their brains in very profitable ways for themselves and their economy. But for those of you who are still stuck in church, think about it very well. When you go to church in the evening, who benefits? Because at the end of the day, upon all your prayers and everything, you still have to give offering to the church. If church, I know some places at a point when people are gaining their senses and they stop giving tithes and offering, special queries are sent to you as to why you are not giving to the church. How about some friends coming together and saying, probably this month, instead of bringing our tithes and offering to the church, just so the church can provide air conditions or fan or nice chairs or a nice building for us, let's use this money to fill a pothole. Let's use this money to help somebody within the society. Let's use this money to do something we can look at and say, this is for us. There are church buildings all over Africa, and yet still, we have to depend on donors. For me, it was one day I just had to sit down and check all that I was giving at church, and I realized this money could have gotten me some property or some investment or something. But because we're so naive, we've been brainwashed to think if you are not giving to church, you are not prospering. For 3 years now, I've stopped church. I wouldn't say everything is working out, because the point is, in the first place, I already wasted a lot of time in church. But I'm so peaceful and I'm so grateful with all the knowledge and intuition that has come to me within this time. I'm still learning. I'm still preparing myself for whatever I desire to have in the future. And it is my desire that this message will help you. You begin to think, analyze yourself, ask yourself what your purpose is on this earth, and check if you're able to reach that purpose while still being in the church. I wish us all the best. Peace.